Audaramasa, Shimbo, Vaistamasi, Tasi, Utama, Yadisha, Vaistai, Tanami Astan, Oramasa, Padea, Vasani, Kusakaravasia, Erda Pravashkarasa, Erda Pravashkarasa, Erda Pravashkarasa, Shimbo, Vaistamasi, Ushasi, Ushama, Yadisha, Vaistai, Shim. Shana Manta Shira Skanta Pravashya, Down Sveng, Veni Samade, Namanya Vishyam Santaman, Bakima Zatushatema, Visparam Chom Gam Purinam Pravashinam, Yidaya Samade, Pravashim Yam Horamastam, Madistam Cha, Vaistam Cha, Saristam Cha, Kaudistam Cha, Rakristam Cha, Ukarapamatimam Cha. Shainam Dakyunam Naram Shanam Pravashyo Yasamaide. Shainam Dakyunam Narinam Shanam Pravashyo Yasamaide. Daninam Dakyunam Naram Shanam Pravashyo Yasamaide. Daninam Dakyunam Narinam Shanam Pravashyo Yasamaide. Visparam Dakyunam Naram Shanam Pravashyo Yasamaide. Visparam Dakyunam Narinam Shanam Pravashyo Yasamaide. Vispal Shanam Ankushras Spanda Pravashya Samaide Yavacha Gayat Maratna Sao Saroshin Kat Viratrakana Upatanoida Yav Shanam Moshushentu Pravashya Tauno Descentu Abange Tauna Zinchit Hato Rienti Evidarestai Bibi Om Nahoramasta Saroshan Shashya Shuramatraja Spenta Vidusha, Vidvai, Astom, Hore, Yim Zarathustra, Pernot, Aventam, Avengem, Asvaite, Auro Vangurishupa Shete, Yav Apo Yausha, Urvara Yausha, Shanam Pravashyo, Ida Tritau, Paiti Zanta, Uyata Humyan Mane, Ida Travanu Tapunam. Manyenti Pankyosh Ashe Uskirventi Jaste Hamakim Avangeshuro Yushmakim Yasne Sivishta Visparam Changam Shanam Shanam Sha Idayasamaite Pravashim Yeshim Yeshvante Chaudvano Savyas Sha Pravashyo Visparam Cha Ungam Shanam Shaninam Sha Idayasamaite Pravashim Yesham Auramasa Shabai Yasne Paiti Vangalo Vidaite Vispanam Cha Esham Sartushtem Poirim Vaistem Aurim Surusham Takeshem Shanya Shembo Vaisamasi Ushasi Ushamai Yadachai Vaistaya Shem.
In the name of the Creator, our Master, the most beneficial, may His glory and radiance increase. May the Holy Guardian Spirits come to our help. May the ceremonial repetition performed with my good thoughts, good words, and good deeds reach you. May the glory of the good Majesty religion be everlasting in the seven regions. May the pleasure of this ceremony reach the holy guardian spirits. And may it be approved in the presence of the Creator, our Master. The residents of London may have fullness, victory, happiness of soul, together with this, their glory be blessed and increased. I dedicate my prayer as an offering into the treasury of the shining and majestic our Master and the eternal holy laws. May the strength, power, might, firmness, courage, and victory reach us through the propagation of the guardian spirits. May we acquire happiness and peace of life. May the celebrated immortal souls of all the righteous guardian spirits be remembered here. May the immortal soul, the soul of Zarathustra Pitama, of the righteous guardian spirit, be remembered here. May the immortal soul, the soul of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II be remembered here. May the immortal soul, the soul of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, be remembered here. May the souls of the former monarchs of the United Kingdom and their families be remembered here. May all the good cure to all the good people of the 7 regions of the earth, for whom the day, the month, the year be victorious to them. Atazania Yatapinam. May it be so as we pray for our Master.
I'd like to thank our Eversides on all our behalf for the prayers of commemoration for Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. For those amongst you who are wondering where these prayers are being come from, they are from the Pravedic Yash, which is the Yash, one of the most ancient Yash in the Zoroastrian called the Avesta prayer book, and they are basically to remember the departed Pravashis, the guardian spirits. When we first heard the sad demise of Queen Elizabeth II on Friday, 8th September, I think the BBC first reported it around about 6:30 in the evening. We were all very saddened to hear the news that our beloved monarch of 96 years, who was the head of state, the supreme governor of the Church of England, and head of the Commonwealth for over 70 years, had passed away. Only on the Saturday, the 4th of June, we had met in this very Zatushi Brothers Hall to celebrate Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee. Of course, little did we know then that within such a short while, Her Majesty would depart from the physical world. Of course, from our perspective, I mean the ZKFE, we have been around since 1861. We have witnessed the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Victoria, Empress of India, the sad demise of Queen Victoria, the coronation of Edward VII, followed by coronation of George V, the abdication of Edward VIII, the coronation of George VI. We have witnessed the fourth first in the Second World War, and then of course the coronation of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And I know that one or two of you were here who actually had the opportunity to be close to the coronation, which was held in 1952. Although I was not here, I was born there. But what I'm saying is this, that the Zoroastrian community in the United Kingdom has got longevity. But most of us are here in the UK came very much after 1947, the independence of India and of course Pakistan. And in the years that followed, we as a community, like all the minority communities here, have prospered. And we have not gone back to our countries, wherever we originated from or where our parents originated from, because we know that this is our home. But the reason we have chosen to stay is what this country offers us. Primarily, the freedom to practice our religion and faith as we choose to. And let us not by any means as Zoroastrians take that lightly. Because even today, in the 21st century, there are some countries in the world where our religion is not very difficult to follow and challenge. So we should never take this lightly for us. And one of the things was that why we have done this commemorative ceremony today is because the monarch of England is also the supreme governor of the Church of England. And primarily, it is the church which sort of allows or creates room for the other minority communities to practice our religion. And this, for instance, we have witnessed very much during Her late Majesty's Christmas broadcast. Because as the defender of the faith, Her Majesty was a committed Anglican Christian. But at the same time, it allowed the royal family to recognize and accept the fact that the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth is made up of several faiths. And to ensure, especially in the United Kingdom, that all faiths and now none can practice the way they wish in harmony with the rest of us. I think, before I go any further, I think it's appropriate that I would like to welcome our first speaker, our patron, Lord Curran William, which, as we all know, is currently, to the best of my knowledge, the sole parliamentarian in the world, the sole Zoroastrian parliamentarian in the world. And he follows in the footsteps of our previous three illustrious parliamentarians, namely Dadabai Babaji in 1892, Sir Mancheti Mehbandi Parliamentary in 1895, and of course Shapuji Saklatwala in 1922, and this year is his parliamentary centenary. So I would like to welcome Lord Bilimoria to give a tribute to Her Majesty. The Queen.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. At the outset, let me say what I always say, and I can never say it enough, but we as a community are so fortunate to have you lead us and all that you do for us day in and day out, for which I'm always grateful, and we are all very grateful. As you represent us in every major occasion, Malcolm will be there on Monday representing our community at the funeral of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Let me also please say thank you to our Sujees who pray so beautifully as always and again, do so much for all of us day in day out, for which again I'm very grateful. Today was meant to be the celebration of my dear friend from Khalifa being knighted by Her Majesty the Queen, her last birthday honours list. He is, as he always would graciously said, let us postpone that celebration. Let us instead use this time to remember the Queen and mark it a memorial for the Queen. So we will celebrate Sir Ron and Lady Khalifa, who are both with us today. We will celebrate your knighthood with pride very, very soon. We're very proud of you. This afternoon, I took my wife and two of our children, along with our dear family friend, the late Viscount Slim, son of the famous Field Marshal Slim. Both of them from the Gurkhas. My father was in the Gurkhas. And I took his daughter Mary Ann Slim. And the five of us went and paid our respects to Her Majesty in Westminster Hall, lying in state. And it is the most special, the most amazing sight, experience. Words cannot express it. And to see the thousands of people who queued for hours and hours to go there to pay their respects says a lot about this great country. If I'm not mistaken, Rusi and Roshan Bilal's son, the Colonel, and his wife queued for hours to pay their respects. And I think it brings to light what an amazing, amazing Queen we have. I remember early this summer I was with Air Marshal Sir David Walker, who was equerry to the Queen and then later Master of the Household for many years and a very good friend. And we were at Goodwood with the Duke of Richmond, and he was talking to me and we were just chatting, and he said, you know, one of my roles one day is I'm going to be one of the pallbearers for the Queen when she passes away. And this is what I'm going to be doing, and this is the role I'll be playing, and this is where I'll be marching. And both of us thought we were talking about something at least 6, 7, 8 years from then. After all, the Queen's mother lived until she was well over 100. Little did we realize what we were talking about was just a few months ago would happen now. But she was 96 years old. She led a full life, so we're celebrating her life. And most of all, we are thanking her. My great-grandmother, Agaba Barimani, used to refer to her as Aprabani, as we all Parsis have always referred to her as our Queen. And the beauty of it is, of course, she was Queen of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain, Wales, Scotland, and England, and Northern Ireland. So she was Queen of the whole Commonwealth of 56 countries. 2.5 billion people, with giant countries like India, 1.4 billion, and tiny Caribbean countries. She was the leader of that Commonwealth of voluntary countries. Not one of those countries is forced to join the Commonwealth. They do it voluntarily, and she was our leader. And she led it with such pride and commitment. And every time you've heard His Majesty King Charles speak about his mother, he speaks about her sense of duty and her sense of service. And in the army over here, when you graduate from Sandhurst as a cadet and become an officer, the motto is serve to lead. And there cannot be a better role model, exemplar, the utmost service leader was Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for 7 decades. She took over at the age of 25. She had to learn on the job. And did she learn? Now, my earliest memories, I put photographs of the Queen, Duke of Edinburgh, His Royal Highness, in our huts. From my earliest memories, because my father, when he was a captain, was ADC to the President of India, Rajendra Prasad, and he was the senior ADC when the Queen made her first state visit to India in 1961. And he was on duty accompanying her everywhere. And I've been brought up with those photographs, brought up with the stories of my mother, then a young bride who just moved into Rashtrapati Bhavan, 23 years old, meeting the Queen and the impression that it made on my mother throughout her life. Little did I know, fast forward, that decades later, I would be privileged to not just meet the Queen, but meet her many, many times, and get to know her, and her husband, His Royal Highness Duke of Edinburgh, and her children, including her son, now our King. The stories I could tell you, I could keep you here all evening. Do you remember the visit of His Royal Highness Duke of Edinburgh? Well, yeah. Those of us who were here will never forget that day. And I went up to the prayer room just now, and of course we take off our shoes when we go to the prayer room, and he took off his shoes and went to the prayer room. We both came out of the prayer room, we're sitting next to each other upstairs there, putting on our shoes, tying our laces, and he looked aside to me and he said, "Do you know, I've had these shoes since the day I was married." Now can you imagine? He was over 90 years old at that time when he came here, and he was still wearing the shoes from the time he was married. And that shows the sentimentality. They were so attached to each other, this couple. The Queen used to refer to him as her rock. Prime Minister Liz Truss has referred to the Queen as the rock of this nation. So we're very lucky to have had people like His Royal Highness Duke of Edinburgh, people like Her Majesty the Queen, who have served us, who have led us, who have inspired us. The Queen had a great sense of humor. I again, tell you story after story after story. One of my roles, I'm a deputy lieutenant, and I remember my vice lieutenant, Sir Michael Craig Cooper, was accompanying the Queen, and they were on a walkabout with the crowds, and she stopped in front of this teenage girl, and Sir Michael was next to her. The girl curtsied. At that very moment, the teenage girl's mobile phone rang. She was very embarrassed. She was the Queen. The Queen said, "Maybe you should answer it. It could be somebody important." So that was her humor. She was absolutely fantastic. She loved her dogs. Of course, you all know the corgis. I had the privilege once of staying in Windsor Castle. We were invited to stay over. And you know when the Queen's coming because the dogs come before she does. And then you know she follows after those dogs. I've seen at Buckingham Palace at a lunch sitting opposite her, where the dogs were sitting around her, and one of the waiters tripped over one of the dogs and had a full tray. And it was in slow motion. I could see this train going all over the Queen. And somehow, I don't know, magically, he didn't drop that tray. So the stories are endless. The way that she would, the last, and some of the big public occasions. In October, the Commonwealth Games, there's a baton that goes around the world before the Commonwealth Games. In October, she came as Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, Birmingham Commonwealth Games. I was there to witness when she handed over the baton to the first baton holder, baton relay holder, and the baton that went around the whole world and came back to the Games this summer. This summer, one of the last public engagements, she didn't come to the State Opening Parliament, if you remember, in May. Just a few weeks later, I was on the committee of the Windsor Horse Show. And you know her passion for horses. She was absolutely knowledgeable and passionate about horses, about horse racing. And the Windsor Horse Show was on the committee this year. Some biggest passion to see that horse show. And Sunday is a grand finale, and we were told that she may not come. She didn't go to the State of the Parliament. Please don't expect her to attend. She won't attend the dinner. The show afterwards, unlikely she comes. If she comes, she'll come for a short while. We were all seated. At 8 o'clock, the show was about to start, and she walked in. She walked in and sat down right in front of me and stayed the full 2 hours of the show. She was clapping, she was smiling, she was laughing. She really enjoyed it. And it didn't stop there. She then went down, got into her car, and did a full circuit of the arena waving to the crowds before she left at 11 o'clock that night. And this was in May. Her stamina was legendary. I remember a time when we were at Windsor Castle for the state visit of the President of India. This was about 2008, 2009. We had the state banquet, and then we all retired for a reception by now, pretty late in the evening, 10:30, 11 o'clock. And then I got a sudden master of the household, there, Marshal David, walked across, and he said, "Look, Baron, please will you go and keep the Majesty company. She just wants you by her side for a while." So I went to stand by her. First thing I said, "Ma'am, where's the President of India?" She said, "Oh, she and her husband had retired. They were tired." She stayed there meeting everybody, talking to people until well past midnight. So we were very fortunate to have somebody very, very special, who cared for us, who had a sense of duty, did it with the most radiant smile. We love her in this country. The Commonwealth loves her, but what I realize is the whole world loves her Majesty. And it is in her words that she said, "We love the Queen, but the price of love is grief." And so we are grieving. There is no running away from that. So I say this: she was the Queen of all queens. She was the monarch of all monarchs. She was the most famous monarch in the world by far, but most importantly, she was the most respected monarch in the world by far. And that is what we should always remember and always be inspired by her. And I always said, when I walked past that coffin today, I said, "Thank you. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you." Thank you also that we now have King Charles III, who himself is an individual of utter duty. I've seen this firsthand time and time and time again. How much he does, how much he cares, how curious he is, how intelligent he is, how many initiatives from the Prince's Trust to the British Asian Trust to, he's a businessman. The Dutchess organic brand is hundreds of millions of pounds of turnover. It's made over 30 million pounds of profit. All of it has gone to charity. The amount of good he has done, the amount he cares. Malcolm was with him just yesterday. With an interfaith event. He cares about interfaith. He cares about us. He cares about Zoroastrians. And we are very lucky to have him as our monarch going forward. And he's going to do his own thing. And I said this in my speech in the House of Lords, and I conclude with this. I know that he will be able to say, as Isaac Newton said, "If I can see further, it's because I am standing on the shoulders of giants." One giant in particular. So, thank you, Your Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. Long live the King, King Charles III. Long may he reign. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Memoria. And it goes without saying that we are extremely proud of whatever you do, and always fly the Zoroastrian flag when you have the opportunity, and the flag of the ZTFP. When Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II was coronated in 1952, Britain was just coming out from the dark days after the Second World War. Although in our country there have always been people who are of different religion from the main street or here, or the different skin color, etc. But it was more so during the reign of the late Queen Elizabeth II, where Britain became very much an interfaith, multicultural country. I, of course, say it's for the better, because it was In the early 90s, we were beginning to see at services of state more and more religious representatives of the minority communities present. And our elder statesman and my illustrious past president and current trustee, Lucy Dalal, was, in living memory, the first ZKFE president to be introduced to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I would like to now invite Lucy to come here and say a few words on his memories and experiences of representing our community. Lucy? This side, Lucy. Lucy? This side. No, it's closed.
Thank you, Martin, for giving me this opportunity of addressing you all. You heard Malcolm and you heard Dr. Karen Moria talking about Her Majesty the Queen, meeting her, our rapport with the monarchy and the establishment. I've met her a few times, Her Majesty, late Majesty Queen Elizabeth. Instead of, not just to give the impression of what it had on me or with me, but I'd like to tell you about what effect has it got on us, as it were. So thank you, Martin, for giving me this opportunity. I express my pride and joy of meeting our late monarch, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I want to reflect upon how this historic event of representing the Zoroastrians to the sovereign monarch had come about. In 1992, I was privileged and honored with the help of others to have an opportunity to mount an exhibition in Parliament House celebrating the parliamentary centenary of Darabai Navroji, who was elected a century before as the first non-white member of Parliament, and I also had the opportunity of addressing the parliamentarians thereat. With the contact and backing of the then High Commissioner of India, Dr. L.M. Singhvi, I received a personal letter dated 19th of January 1994 from the Joint Commonwealth Societies Council inviting me to attend the Commonwealth Day observance to be held at Westminster Abbey for the first time to represent the Zoroastrians. And that was quite primary to me, to represent the Zoroastrians. It was with great trepidation and anxiety I attended this Commonwealth Day observance. I was ushered to the Abbey and formally introduced to Her Majesty, representing the Zoroastrians in the United Kingdom. It is not what she said or spoke about, but her simplicity and ease of conversation impressed me most. Her keen sense of interest in you, and above all, her handshake and the gaze, looking straight into your eyes, standing just inches away from me. In fact, that put me at great ease. What was the effect of it? Being with the monarch, even for a short moment of time, but representing the Zoroastrians has aroused an everlasting confidence in me to serve my people and my country of abode. More so, since my first audience with Her Majesty the Queen in 1994, and I had the honor of meeting her several times after that in the Abbey, at the garden parties, on the walkabouts, particularly in Windsor, with Her Majesty, where my son Firo was also introduced to Her Majesty. So I've got not only me, but my son, I'm very proud of that one, has been able to meet her and greet her and talk to her about her work in Windsor. And this, but importantly, this has made history that repeats itself as my worthy successor, ZTFE president, have continued to be honored by the audience with the monarch and deal with the establishment to this day. Till yesterday, I should say, that our president, Malcolm Devo, had an audience with King Charles III for the first time with other members of the faith with abiding in this country, the United Kingdom. Malcolm, we are so proud of you. You met the king for the first time. Yes, representing your rights. Absolutely fantastic. Finally, before I conclude, you heard our Lord Belvoir, our patron, but I would pay my own tribute of, I cannot help but commend and salute the tireless and dedicated efforts of our patron Lord Karan Belvoir, committed to propel the Zoroastrians to the forefront of the progressive existence and abode and consolidating our successes not only in the United Kingdom but globally. I thank Karan for all his backing that he has. He never forgets to mention Zoroastrianism in his talk anywhere that he gives. And thank you, and of course our tribute to Malcolm as well. He's done so prominently well. This is what my memory of meeting the Queen has been, that has been successful in passing that torch and talking about us Zoroastrians. Maybe may we pay tribute to her late Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II. May her soul rest in peace. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for your tribute and memories of representing our organization and our community with Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And of course, Lucy mentioned of his bride and son Firoz meeting Her late Majesty. But yesterday, quite a few of you on us must have seen the live broadcast by the BBC when suddenly we heard Dr. Saurabh Dalal, Colonel Saurabh Dalal of the Armed Forces, and his wife Wendy was being interviewed after they had went and paid their homage to Her Majesty in Palace of Westminster. And of course, Saurabh remarked that his mother, Roshan, and his grandmother had been here for the coronation occurred. So they are one person who was here when we had the coronation. Of course, the baton of the presidency passed from Lucy to another illustrious president, Dora Mistry, in 1997. And of course, we had even better innings at that time relatively, because Britain itself was progressing more and more in the interfaith era. Dora, I would like to please invite you to give your tribute and memories of our late Majesty.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor on a sad occasion to recall our community's association with the royal family as Malcolm, our wonderful president, and Lord William, our official and unofficial ambassador to the court of St. James's. It's been a great honor to be invited and to be presented to Her Majesty at the Commonwealth Day observance. But as time evolved, Zoroastrians started being recognized and we started being invited to almost every state occasion, whether in St. Paul's Cathedral, Westminster Abbey, or thanks to the efforts of Lord William, the Remembrance Day at the Cenotaph. So there has been many occasions. I will recall that the real opening up for Zoroastrians happened and I was very privileged to be present at that time, in 1999, when the Millennium Dome was conceived and established. And the government of the United Kingdom decided, and we have to say thank you to the Prime Minister of the day, Tony Blair. Incidentally, Tony Blair also appointed Lord William to the House of Lords. It was the Blair government which said that in the faith zone of the Millennium Dome, the 9 major faiths of the United Kingdom would be represented. And in those 9, the tiniest minority faith in the United Kingdom was included. And I think that was a huge achievement, crowning many years of very hard work in the interfaith movement. And I'm so glad to see leaders of other communities here with us. Her Majesty, as everyone who has met her will know, spoke very little and was very guarded in what she said. The real Raja came talking to the Duke. So I will not go much into those conversations, but I say my pride is that day in 2002 when there was a huge reception at Buckingham Palace to celebrate the Golden Jubilee of Her Majesty coming to the throne. And it was a multi-faith event. And with a lot of effort, a lot of blogging, I think I managed to get 8 invitations, and there were 8 Zoroastrians under the roof of Buckingham Palace on one day at a single event. And we met and decided that we would invite not just office bearers, but there was with me Edward Busigwar, our trustees, Roshi Rawali. I think Roshi should be here somewhere. He will remember the day because he was wearing a pagri, and Prince Philip was quite fascinated to see that in his pagri there was a bit of ventilation to keep his head cool. And there was Mrs. Khorshid Sohi, the late Khorshid Sohi. There was Jangir Sarosh. I myself was there. There were 8 of us all together. And I think that was, I don't think more Zoroastrians have, the late Sharo, I don't think more Zoroastrians have been under the roof of Buckingham Palace than on that particular day. So we have always got to be eternally grateful to the royal family, to Her Majesty, to Prince Philip, and to Prince Charles. King Charles. I feel that both Prince Philip and King Charles know a great deal about our community, much more than we think or we can imagine. And when Prince Philip was here, he narrated about his long-standing friendship with the late J.R.D. Tata, an interest born out of a mutual love of flying. And you remember he mentioned that when he used to fly his own aircraft to Australia, they would make 4 or 5 stops on the way. And one of the stops was in Jamshedpur, where Jay would personally receive him and look after him for the night. And he was also very friendly with my chairman, the late Sorabji Godrej, Chairman Godrej, who was the Vice Chairman of the World Wildlife Fund. So, having said that, there are so many memories to say, but let us all today join together in remembering 70 glorious years of Queen Elizabeth II and many more to come of King Charles III. And thank you, Malcolm, for all that you do. Thank you, Lord Memoria. Thank you, Lucy, my distinguished successor, Worsh. Eli is also here. And a common factor was our high priest, Lucy Bedwa, who was always there. And if he was alive today, I don't know whether he would also have been invited to the funeral. But we have had some fantastic contributions, and all the hard work that we put into the interfaith movement has paid off. But nothing would happen without the generosity and welcoming nature of the royal family. And that is why I always told my friends, when they have sometimes expressed disagreement with what is going on in politics or in the United Kingdom, that we as a minority have the right to be patriotic, have the right to prosper, but we have no right to protest. With those words, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you for that rousing tribute to our late Majesty. And yes, I think we all fully agree that it is the generosity and the graciousness and the welcome of the United Kingdom which has allowed us to prosper and, importantly, continue to practice our ancient religion. I would now like to invite a person who has represented the London Borough of Harrow for many years, not only locally, but London-wide. He has been a very good friend of ours, and when he was the leader of Harrow Council, when Dora was our president, he was very instrumental in ensuring that Harrow Council gave us the change of license for us to have the Zoroastrian sentiment in this wonderful heritage listed cinema. And only this year he retired from the GLA as an assembly member and was awarded the CBE in Her Majesty's last birthday honours list. I'd like to welcome Naveen Shah, please.
Society, friends, and the stooges. In our home of Harrow, in our Zoroastrian Center, I share my profound grief at the loss of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II and convey our condolences and prayers to King Charles III and members of the royal family. Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II will be remembered with respect and fondness for lifelong service to the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth and across the globe. Very interesting, Lord Lemuria mentioned about Apadi Rani. And it so happens that in the 60s, I come from Mumbai. My English teacher was German Gyara. She always talked about Apadi Rani, both in the assembly as well in the class on those occasions. So funny, how throughout those decades, throughout that amazing service that the Queen gave, wherever you go, any part of the world, she has left her image, her love, and everything that she did and respected then and now and forever. In paying tribute to the Queen, I also vividly and fondly remember meeting the Queen and her fairly recent visits to Harrow, accompanied by the Duke of Edinburgh. Representing Harrow as the deputy leader of Harrow Council, it was an honor to meet Her Majesty the Queen at Alexandra Palace in June 2002. This is the first time I was privileged to meet her personally. I remember well this particular occasion, as I said, my first one, when I introduced the Queen to a team comprising Joyce Mark, who was then the chief exec of Harrow Council, and a group of people, and who were they? Volunteers and interfaith community leaders from Harrow. This was followed by a very memorable visit by Her Majesty the Queen, accompanied by, again, Duke of Edinburgh, to Harrow in April 2004. In fact, it was 1st of April when we first announced this. Everything was confidential, but a few days before we had to tell the councillors, they couldn't quite believe, particularly when we said it was the 1st of April, but it actually happened. And what an amazing occasion that was. And that is when they came along to Harrow to mark the 50th anniversary of Harrow's incorporation as the borough. Because, Harrow was a suburban borough, and it got status of borough in the 60s, and then 50 years on, we had the privilege of Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh with us. It was a privilege as the deputy leader of Harrow Council to accompany the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh for the formal unveiling of the plaque in Harrow Town Centre, not far from Katie's statue. And I remember to date how on a mini stage that we had sort of put up in the town centre, going up with the Queen, and she unveiled the statue. And of course we had the Duke of Edinburgh with us as well. This was the occasion when the town centre was packed with Harrow's multicultural population, cheering and clapping the royalty with entertainment provided by young musicians and dancers from Harrow's local schools. Following the ceremony, the royal couple were greeted at Harrow Civic Centre by councillors and leaders of the local faith and voluntary groups. Prince Philip, as always, enjoyed talking with the guests. Now, again, Dora mentioned the Queen, during those occasions that are mentioned, both the one at Alexandra Palace and that hour I spent in Harrow Town Centre, said very little. But like Dora said, Maja kya rahe when you are with Prince Philip. And Rekha is here. Rekha was with the group chatting with Prince Philip. And Rekha recalls coming from Mumbai, so she said to Prince Philip, I'm from Mumbai. So obviously, he jokingly corrected, you surely mean Bombay, not Mumbai. Sir, and also, you could tell, it wasn't the image of Harrow he had as a leafy, white suburban area. He was quite amazed by the diversity of both culture, ethnicity, and faiths. But that's what Harrow is. And I mean, that was the occasion that we absolutely loved, and it was amazing that we had that occasion when they were here. And then, last time, again, I met the royalty. Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Philip was when they visited Harrow's Krishna Avanti Primary School during Her Majesty's Diamond Jubilee celebrations. The Queen enjoyed a variety of performances and was impressed with the diversity which was the theme of the celebrations at this first ever voluntary aided Hindu school in the UK. Something which wasn't in my script, but again, Lord William O'Dear mentioned about Queen's corgis. Yeah? Now, it was my privilege, a surprise, and obviously very, very pleasant surprise, when I was on a Queen's Honours list for the CBE. My granddaughter, who's 7 years old, she was very excited, and we did a video clip, which many of you might have seen on that occasion. What she said in there, she said, "Her Majesty the Queen, I'm really pleased that you gave my GP, my grandparents, the CBE. I'm looking forward to coming to the palace and meeting you and the corgis. I love them, adore them. So, you know, touching the hearts of people. That is what Her Majesty was all about." Now, you know, where do you stop? Well, the memories will always remain in the heart, and we celebrate her contribution, enormous that it is, right throughout. All I want to say is that let's take forward that legacy. We have heard about King Charles III, how much he's already contributed. I want to mention a couple of things here. As an architect, somebody who believes in the environment, both built and the natural one, that's where, controversially at times, then King Charles is known to have talked about built environment. He hates what we call carbuncles. I disagree, but it is the debate we need to have. What kind of built environment we want to see? The heritage, then the contemporary buildings, etc. And I hope that as a king, Prince Charles III continues with that inspiration, I call, rather than debate or argument. Similarly, on the environment, he's already made major strides and inspired us, and I hope that he will continue, particularly the whole issue about climate change, which no doubt he would, and look forward to that. Finally, in conclusion, just one apology I need to pass on to you. Our friend Gareth Thomas, MP for Harrow West, unfortunately, who could not be here, so I'm conveying his apology for not being here on this momentous occasion. Let's pray, remember, and give tribute to our late Queen. Rest in peace, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I would now like to invite our entrepreneur, chairwoman of the World Thoracic Chamber of Commerce, UK chapter. Being an entrepreneur, Shanaz, as we all know, whoever has interfaced with her, she is very passionate of helping others, promoting others, especially other women. And Shanaz has had the honor to meet Her Majesty quite closely. And I'll let Shanaz share that experience with you. Shanaz, engineer.
reminds me where the Queen could not be seen in Washington because they hadn't lifted the diet. I don't know if you remember that, but she then said, I hope everyone can see me when she went to the Senate. So it was a great privilege. I've met Her Majesty twice. Once in 2009, when she invited some Shiming scholars for a reception. If people don't know who the Shiming scholars are, they're actually students from abroad who the Foreign Office pays for them to come to this country, stay for a year, go to universities, and this is kind of a soft way of encouraging them to think very proactively about Britain. So Her Majesty had invited 100 students to the palace, and I was invited too, and it was wonderful the way she came in. We were all sort of in groups, and she came and spoke to each group collectively. And it was very illuminating. She was so knowledgeable, which was very striking. The next time I met her, actually I thought it was a Valentine's Day card from her because she invited 25 women on Valentine's Day. It was wonderful. We had lunch with her. So when we got there, there was Princess Anne, Sophie Wessex, and now our Queen Consort. And then you thought, oh gosh, is she not coming? And then after half an hour, the corgis came, and it was really good, you could see. And she came in, and she met each of us individually. And what really surprising was, when Ekri said, ma'am, this is Shana's engineer, she immediately said, you are in recruitment. I mean, imagine remembering, what 25 people did. It's amazing, her memory. And at that time, I had a BPO, which is sending typing to be typed up abroad. And I had an office in Mysore. And she asked me what it meant and how it worked. And you felt that she was genuinely interested. And the other thing that really struck me was this aura about her. It was sort of divine, and I was speaking to one of my friends, Susan, who is actually a vicar, and she said, well, it's because she was anointed by the holy oil. But I think there was something very divine about her. When you are in her presence, you feel something. I don't know, Karen, if you have. But there was something quite different about her than anyone else I've ever met. And it was an absolute privilege. I don't think I'll ever forget it. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much. I think we are quite, in one way, quite privileged today to have our speakers sharing a variety of their experience of meeting Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. As we all know, that the armed forces of this country for many centuries had, within its ranks, had a diverse community, diverse faiths serving in the armed forces. Of course, many of us, the Zoroastrians, have got a history of serving the armed forces. Rusi Dalal mentioned his son today, Dr. Sohrab Dalal, who is, I think, the highest serving Zoroastrian today in the armed forces. But we have had a substantial members of the minority communities serving in the armed forces. One such person who is a career soldier and a friend of the associate community is Warrant Officer Ashok Chauhan, who is well known amongst us in the minority communities for his services to our country. I would like to invite Warrant Officer Ashok Chauhan to say a few words, please.
My Lord, ladies and gentlemen, I've met Her Majesty the Queen on numerous occasions. In fact, the royal family. As a member of the armed forces and the army, Her Majesty, was our Captain General in the Royal Artillery. The first time I met her was at a very, very young age. I just joined the army, and she was coming over to Dortmund in Germany to visit, and it's the first glimpse I had, and it was the most exciting thing that happened to me, seeing Her Majesty. Thereafter, I've met her on numerous occasions, and like Lord Barnard said, she speaks very little, very, very softly. My fond memories were when she opened the Commonwealth Gates at Constitution Hill, and then when I got awarded my MBE, and it was such a, that was the highlight of my career, meeting Her Majesty. And because I'm a royalist, and I do love the royal family, because what they do for our country is second to none, and the Commonwealth. But, my fond memories are just seeing a wonderful lady who did so much, and she was the hardest working royal, and then obviously after her husband Suzanne. But, all I want to say is, God save the Queen, long may King Charles III reign, rest in peace. Thank you.
Another member of our community who had an association with Her late Majesty and Prince Philip is our well-known executive chef of Cafe Spice Namaste, Cyrus Todiwala. Cyrus unfortunately cannot make it here today, but he is sending a message which is a very good insight of the royal family. And as you all know, that Cyrus had the privilege during the Diamond Jubilee to prepare the meal for Her late Majesty and the royal family at Walthamstow Town Hall. I would like to request our Vice President, Beram Kapadia, to come and just read out the message, please. In the meantime, if Beram is coming, I'd just like to mention or repeat once again that we do have a commemorating book of condolences which would urge all of you to write your messages in to Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Good evening, my Lord, ladies and gentlemen. I've been requested to read out Cyrus's speech. As my son has already said, he and Parliament cannot be here today due to unforeseen circumstances. As the nation mourns on the passing of a legendary figure, one of the most iconic human beings of the 20th and 21st centuries, we also reflect on the privileges offered to some of us who have had the opportunity to come in contact with their Royal Highnesses. Some of these contacts and communications cannot be shared in public. But for the sake of happy memories and several brief moments, I share some thoughts. On our very first meeting with Her Majesty and the Duke of Edinburgh came sometime in the year 1997 or 1998, when we were invited to the garden party at Windsor Great Park. This was the time that I, for one, and still don't have much dress sense, and came to attend the event in a simple blazer and plain clothes, thinking that we would never get to meet the royals, least of all even get close to them. As soon as we got out of the car and saw others emerge, we were far too embarrassed to see the well-dressed, well-clothed ladies and gents proceeding to the event in front of us, and felt even worse because I had simply put on any old blazer that may not even have matched my clothes. Parveen, on the other hand, is always well dressed anyway. So as two solitary people, Parveen and I were standing away from the very enthusiastic crowd, all but wanting to rush to meet Her Majesty and Prince Philip. We stayed away. All of a sudden, His Royal Highness Prince Philip made a beeline for us, much to the disgust of the crowd, and began chatting, asking questions, and making us feel very comfortable. Her Majesty and the rest of the royal family all came to meet us and chat with us, leaving many of the others muttering and cursing, asking each other if anyone knew us. That day, we realized how gracious and understanding they actually were when they put two nervous young people out of place and feeling very embarrassed, at rest, and totally relaxed us. Thereafter, we suddenly grew in status with many others. Anyway, the Duke asked me my profession and made a few comments, then moved on. Whilst they were departing, all of us who were invited to the great tent were asked to move outside to bid farewell, and it was then that it started to drizzle. Prince Philip turned round, saw me in the crowd, and promptly came right up to me and asked, "Spice boy, where are your umbrellas?" To which I responded, "What umbrellas, sir?" He said, "You are not a good businessman, are you? I would have a box full of umbrellas with your logo and details and sell them for a tenner each. This is the moment everyone here will buy them of you, like hotcakes." He then turned around and got into the car, and once again the crown thought that these two were special people of some stature. What a laugh that was, and as he left, we were presented with a sapling of the Elizabeth II rose. The one thing I can say is that whenever we met them, Prince Philip never forgot to call me Spice Boy. Now many people think and say a few not very pleasant things about the royal family, but when two of the most sought after people in the world that meet a few hundred people every day can remember an ordinary person and not forget, that to me is greatness of a certain class that in my mind remains unsurpassed. Lord Gleemoyer and I share a very personal story with His Royal Highness, once at Buckingham Palace, but it cannot be spoken of in public. I hope he remembers, and as that will bring a big chuckle to his face too, and it is related to the RSPB and our efforts to raise money for the 10 just visualized vulture project in India. On one such fundraising evening, Karan was the guest speaker at Cafe Spice, and we had raised on that one day £38,000, and then more with some other activities we had conducted to send the money to India.
Through our efforts, a total sum of nearly £65,000 was raised. As to how the Duke knew about that is anyone's guess. So over the years, yes, we have been privileged to have had many contacts with their Majesties and His Royal Highness, and these one shall cherish for a long time to come. Our greatest honor and privilege came when the then God Lieutenant Sir David Brewer came to me in 2011 and told me that the palace had asked if I would be happy to host Her Majesty's very first Diamond Jubilee luncheon in 2012. But there was a catch. The instruction also said that I had to select the venue in North London preferably, and then to invite them to the venue. At first I was very nervous, but then we got ourselves organized. It was actually Sir Brewer's idea, I'm sure. I selected the town hall at Waltham Forest, and then the date was confirmed, which was the 29th of March, 2012. The rest of the arrangements, after much debating, eventually came to fruition, and it was a sheer joy working with the senior PA to Her Majesty and the Lieutenant's office, as well as the security service. We had to keep it a closely guarded secret for very obvious reasons, and besides, Pervin, no one else got to know. We then recruited the support for our suppliers, chief chef friends, all of whom were sworn into secrecy. The thing that was upsetting at the time, for me, was not telling our sons, but we could not. They only knew after it was published in the Evening Standard the day before, where we could then tell everyone. The event, I have to say, was fantastic. The day was as glorious as can be. The lunch was a massive success for 450 persons, though there was one major scare, and that being their Majesties arrived 40 minutes early, throwing our schedule to pieces. But the very best part is that they asked the Lord Lieutenant if they could meet the people behind the lunch, and that showed sheer graciousness when every member of the team was met. For that particular lunch, I had, on one of my visits to Highway House, had asked the manager of the estate if he would supply me the Hamburg parsley that was grown there for the lunch. He gladly agreed, but closer to the time, being a purely biodynamic farm, the rodents had done a stellar job of that field and cleaned up all but 2 kilos of the vegetables when we needed 15 kilos. Only a very few tables, including Her Majesty's, were served from that stock. The menu no doubt said Hamburg parsley from the High Road estates. To that effect, there was a little jibe from the Duke, and a gleam in his eye when he came up to me and had a few words, as though knowing very well about the parsley. The Hamburg parsley, for those who may not know, is a root vegetable, much like a white carrot of the parsley family, but very different. The leaves do taste and look like parsley. Thank you very much for asking me to share one or two episodes with the Lord. But what most people, or those that have always opposed that part of the establishment, is that you would not find that level of hard work and dedication amongst any other people in the nation. As true leaders of the nation, the time, effort, energy, hard work, and understanding when no two people work harder. This we know from the many friends inside the palace, and it showed from the amazing homework done prior to their visit to the business. Superior beings do have superior minds. From Cyrus Tolliver. Thank you. And may God rest Her Majesty's soul in peace in Garoth.
1st of June, many of us were privileged to be invited to the residence of the High Commissioner of India when they felicitated Science Poonawalla, of which our patron, Karan Vilimoria, was one of the lead speakers, the go-between of what the development of the COVID vaccine. Amongst us on that day, of course, was our life member, Sir Rohinton Khalifa. Not that on that day, he was not Sir yet. He was Rohinton Khalifa OBE. That night, very next morning, it was announced in the press in the birthday honors list that Rohinton had been knighted. And I asked him, how well did he manage to keep that secret? He said, with difficulty. But Sir Rohinton, amongst many things, it also works very closely with the Prince and Princess of Wales, now Prince William and Catherine. I would like to request Sir Ron to say a few words, please.
Thank you very much. You know, listening to the stories and the recollections, particularly that I see a sea of faces here, I'm reminded about our community, and our community is really bound together. And before I say something about Her Majesty the Queen and the Royal Family, I just want to say thank you to all of you, but importantly to the fact that there are several of you that help to bind our community together, because we are a small community, and I include Malcolm, Lord Vilimoria, and many, many others. So thank you very much for everything you do. It's much appreciated by all of us. Thank you. You know, the stories that I've heard just sitting here listening all have a very common thread. They have a common thread of a person who wasn't elected. It's a person who was Queen for now 70 years and 214 days. And she's met hundreds and thousands of people. I read the other day that she has shaken over 3 million hands during the course of her reign. And the outpouring of affection that we've seen around the world for a public figure is just unbelievable. Politicians don't get that, nobody gets that, but that shows how Her Majesty the Queen was thought about. I had the pleasure of meeting her several times, and there are a few occasions that I can think of. I'll tell you one. It was when I was given the OBE. I can remember distinctly a letter coming through the post. I opened it, I had to read it a few times to make sure there wasn't a friend of mine pulling a prank. And then I had to keep quiet. I couldn't tell Jill, my wife, I couldn't tell my parents, I couldn't tell my son. And I asked Mum and Dad to come over for lunch. They were at our house. My dad was sitting to my left, my mum was sitting to my right, Jill was sitting next to my dad, and Ryan was sitting next to my mum. And I gave a letter to my dad to read. And he opened it, slowly read it, looked at me, and some of you know my father, or knew my father, looked at me and just didn't really understand what it said. Because a letter is an invitation to say, we are minded to recommend you to be given an honor. So I did it on purpose to see the reaction on their faces, because it was a very moving thing, not just for me, but also for the family. So that was one very salutary experience I had. But then we were invited, obviously, to Buckingham Palace. When you go to Buckingham Palace, you don't know who is going to give you the honour. And we got into the car, we went round into the sort of the number of people that are outside, peering through the glass to see if we were the Queen, Duke of Edinburgh, the royal family. We weren't. Disappointed them. We went through the gates, and as we went through the gates, we saw the Royal Standard. And the Royal Standard was the first indicator and sign that the Queen was actually the person who was going to be providing this wonderful recognition for us. And she was dignified, she was regal in everything that you've seen. I mean, you see the photograph that is there in front of us, that captures the person in every way. But the thing that I think will always stay with me was something that Shona said, which is that there are hundreds and hundreds of people that she will come across and she will be giving these honours to. And as you approach the whole ceremony, there's a lot of protocol, and there's a lot to remember, and you don't want to mess it up. So as you go up to the Queen, you're told where to stand, when to move, and you move when your name is announced, and you move when your surname is announced, not the first name. So you start moving in that direction. And you see the Queen standing there. She's 5'4", quite small, but she's standing on a sort of pedestal. You approach the pedestal and you're told very clearly to bow your head. And you bow your head, then you move forward. As you move forward, the first thing you have to say is, Your Majesty. So she reaches her hand out, and the signal when she's tired of talking to you is that she puts her hand out again. That means you have to go. So she put her hand out, and we spoke for a few moments. She knew about the business that I've been involved in. It was a painting business. And she said to me, so tell me about this business. She said, I understand you started with 75 people. How many people have you got now? I said, well, it was 75 people in 2002. It's now 60,000 people around the world. And I was watching a video this afternoon just to remind myself. And I could physically see her moving backwards and saying the word gracious in glee and sort of in a surprise. And she then started talking about the business. And the business is a payment business, it's a card business. And she said to me, so I think you invented the chip and pin. I said, no, I didn't invent that, but I'm involved in a business that does do that. And I said, what do you think of it? And she said, I don't like it. Because I have to remember my PIN number. And I said, I'm sure you don't need to worry about it too much. So she said, I'll tell you a secret. My PIN number is 1234. Now, I don't know if that's true or false. I've never tested it. But it's a sign of her humor. It's a sign of her style. And the one thing I think that's very clear is when I think about Her Majesty the Queen, I look at the words above us here. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And they characterize very much her presence. And I'm reminded very much, of a saying which I'm a great believer in, which is many people will forget what you said, many people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. That, I think, picks up on exactly how Her Majesty the Queen was to so many people around the world. Whether it was the severity of dealing with politicians on a weekly basis, she sees the Prime Minister or speaks to the Prime Minister every week, or it's jumping out of a helicopter, or it's pulling out a Monday sandwich out of her handbag. But those are some of the memories that I have. And I'm involved, as Malcolm says, with the Royal Foundation. So I wrote a letter the other day to Prince William and to Catherine as well, Princess of Wales now. And they wrote back to me, so I thought I would just read to you what they say. As I said, I'm involved with the Royal Foundation. So they said, thank you so much for your condolences and best wishes. It means a lot. It will take some time for our family to get used to life without Her Majesty the Queen. But her presence and guidance will live on through the royal family's dedication, public service, and doing what we can to make a difference to people's lives. And you at the Foundation are on the forefront of that line of work from which we draw a great deal of strength and purpose. We're very proud of what we have and we will achieve together. So was the Queen. Thank you and see you soon, William and Catherine. So let me stop there by just saying that I've had many fortunate experiences, but the one that will always live with me will be the experience of meeting the Queen. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Ron, for sharing with us your insight and your personal experience of meeting Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Both Sir Ron and Cyrus in this message conveyed that the sense of humor about not only, of course, His late Royal Highness Prince Philip, but of course also Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Now, Cyrus mentioned that he had the honor of preparing the lunch during the Diamond Jubilee of Her late Majesty. And as many of you are aware, that Her Majesty and the royal family have several engagements in any given day. And I mean several. And what is quite remarkable is that when Her Majesty, this was during Diamond Jubilee, and Prince Philip, at that age they were still having the multiple engagements. And after lunch on that day at Waltham Forest Town Hall, as Naveen Shah mentioned, they had come to the London Borough of Harrow and to the Avanti Hindu School. And of course, ZTFE is an active member of Harrow Interfaith. And at that time, our then representative, who is currently our Honorary Secretary, Rohit Munshi, was the treasurer of Harrow Interfaith. And he was honored to have a meeting with Her Majesty the Queen. And I would like to ask Rohit to just come up quickly and just convey that particular experience, to convey the sense of humor of Her Great Majesty.
Thank you. ZTFE patron Lord Memoria, Sir Ron, Lady Khalifa, Councillor Emeritus Noshirbari, past presidents of ZTFE, Durrani District, Baruch President ZTFE, Malcolm Devu, Councillors Rekha Shah, Krishna and Sasi Suresh, Naveen Shah, CDE, Warrant Officer Shohan, Harmantar Singh, Gopal Bhatta, Chair of HIF, as Harrow Interfaith, members of Harrow Interfaith, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Sir Ron said something very profound just now. He spoke about the thread that binds us together. And he said that in a way the monarchy has bound us together. That's the underlying message. I have heard commentators say on the radio and the television that the late Queen bound a golden thread, wove a golden thread throughout our nation and the Commonwealth. In many ways, as Sir Ron has said, you as ambassadors of our faith, in your respective lives, are doing the same thing. You represent us as a whole as much as we who hold offices at the ZTFE try to do. We emulate, or try to emulate, the work of our trustees, our past and current presidents, and you in your general lives. We have heard much and will hear more about the Queen's tireless service to our nation and the Commonwealth in the coming days. And we have already been hearing and are likely to hear more about her sense of humour. Giles Brandreth, in an interview on the 8th of September 2022, spoke of Her Majesty and her sustained and driven duty. But he also mentioned her wonderful sense of humour, and many of you would have heard other commentators and people that knew her speak of her wit. In fact, I heard someone talk of it as wit being very happy and sarcastic. On the occasion of her Diamond Jubilee celebrations in 2012, I was the Zoroastrian faith representative at Harrow Interfaith, serving as the honorary treasurer. The Queen visited Krishna School in Edgware, and my colleagues and I at HIF had gathered to welcome her. The Queen met our group. I introduced myself and informed her of my role as the honorary treasurer of our interfaith. Smiling, Her Majesty replied, "Treasurer, what do you have to treasure?" I replied, "Well, thanks to the generosity of our council, we receive a grant and donations from faith groups. We all work together." Turning to the rest of our group, she said, "You all work together," as if in approval, and moved to the next presentation. Her witty response showed a side of her personality we were not expected to see, highlighting that even though Her Majesty was on an official visit, she was capable of sprinkling humour and wit into the mix. I am sure the Queen's visit to Harrow was memorable for all, but that moment was especially for me. King Charles III, in his address to the nation on the 9th of September 2022, said, "In our sorrow, let us remember and draw strength from the light of her example. This, of course, includes duty to service. But in addition, no matter how heavy the burden you carry, you can make room for laughter and make others laugh with you. That, Her Majesty has also shown us." Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. I would like to now invite our last speaker, and a good friend of the ZTFE, and an active member of the Sikh community, who is a Justice of the Peace, active in interfaith, who you know Gaurav and myself for over the last 20 years, and also an active member of the London Borough of Redbridge, Harminder Singh. If I could just request you to come. And Harminder will also share his sense of humour about Her Majesty. He himself has got quite a humorous person who knows him.
Hello, Greece, our elders and friends. Thank you, Malcolm, for inviting me. And congratulations on meeting the King. The good thing about being last speaker is most of the good things have already been said, and I don't have to struggle to find something new, because I can just relay my personal experience of having met Her Majesty 4 times. I think I used to think the first 3 times were by mistake. There's probably another harmonium to sing somewhere, if I knew why he never gets invited. But it wasn't until the 4th time when the Deputy Lieutenant Thomas Chan invited me, well, Her Majesty did, but he decided that I should accompany him. My first recollection was the Golden Jubilee, when about 120 people were invited to meet Prince Philip and Her Majesty at Western Football Ground. I was with a young lady who was very good looking, and Prince Philip came in and he went straight to her and said, "What do you do?" And she says, "I'm a trainee nurse." And he said, "Well, you can take my pulse anytime." Majesty just rolled her eyes and carried on. That was so much beauty of the couple, being the wrong couple, having so much in common, but being so friendly, making everyone feel at ease. The second time was at the Royal Garden Party in Buckingham Palace, again. It almost seemed as if she remembers everybody's faces, if not the names. And I was just overjoyed that I was, from the many people there, I had a chance to meet Her Majesty again. The third, I'm a trustee, or was a trustee, of the Valentine's Mansion, the oldest building in Redbridge. And we managed to make lots of lottery money, refurbished it. The Queen of Holland stayed there during the war. And we reopened it, and that's the 3rd time I met Her Majesty. Now, I'm very proud of my family's history in the armed services. My grandfather, and then my father, they served in the First and Second World Wars. My father was in the Far East under Lord Slim, who actually took me to some clubs himself, because I was a member of the original the Memorial Gates, the Commonwealth Memorial Gates on Constitution Hill. And I recall meeting my president, who then promised but was unable to make it possible for me to meet Her Majesty for the 5th time. But this was some time ago. But after my grandfather and father, my brother has been serving the Crown for 30 years. Both my sons are in uniform, the police, and even my daughter held the Royal White Guard. I've been on the bench for 30 years. So my family's had more than a century of serving the Crown, and I'm very, very proud, and one day I'd like to change it. All I can say is that it's a hard act to follow for King Charles, but I have every faith that he will be doing it, because he has put all our communities at ease. The Sikhs share many things with the Zoroastrians: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. We pray, we remember God, we work hard, and we share with others. There are similarities, and I'm proud that, having met President Malcolm so many years ago with FBRN, and I was given the honour of setting up the Phase 1 for London, of which I'm now a council member, that may our relationship continue. But as King Charles said, he's not only the defender of the faith, he's a defender of all faiths. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hamenda. And it's the inspiration of Her Majesty the late Queen, Prince Philip and the royal family. It gives us the inspiration to also do public service in our own way. And we will continue, because this is the only way the organization of the ZTFE can continue to operate. At the outset, I mentioned about Her Majesty being the Supreme Governor of the Church of England. Of course, as your President, like our previous illustrious past presidents, we have had the privilege and the honor to represent the oldest Indian or South Asian religious organization in this country at the services of state for the last 3 decades. And we've had the honor to meet and be introduced to Her Majesty and the royal family on several occasions. And one that struck with me the most was really shortly after His Royal Highness Prince Philip had visited us here for our 50th centennial on the 6th of October 2011, where his sense of humor had remarked, and of course being the head of the World Wildlife Fund, he had mentioned to us, I remember, I think Joab and I, amongst others, remembered 2 or 3 particular quips of his. First was when he had come in the Tata Jaguar Land Rover, he said, "Oh, I just remembered that I'd come here in a Parsi car." The second one was about the vultures dying, and he quipped, "The reason they're dying is because there are not many of you around." And of course he praised us and may you continue as an association, not for the next 150 years, for the next 1,000 years. If we all remember that particular momentous moment. But shortly after that was the Diamond Jubilee, and my first occasion I was privileged to be honored, and meet Her Royal Highness, Her Royal Highness, together with our immediate past President Boris Schiller, our late senior priest Lucy Bedbar, and Dr. Rashna Riker at London Palace. And at that time, in the speech, Her Majesty had said on the 15th of February 2012 that being the Supreme Governor of the Church of England, she mentioned it is the fabric of the country, the Church of England. And the concept of the established church is occasionally misunderstood and I believe commonly underappreciated. It has created an environment for other faith communities and indeed people of no faith to live freely. This, of course, was the official endorsement of the freedom of religious practice in the United Kingdom. This, in a sense, was a continuation when His Majesty the King, when he was the Royal Highness Prince of Wales in the 90s, when he had mentioned that he would like to be the defender of faith. And this was the theme which he spoke about when we had the honor to meet him yesterday at Buckingham Palace, together with over 30 other representatives of the faith communities of the United Kingdom, including the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Bishop of London, the Chief Rabbi, including yours truly. And he mentioned, and he clarified what he said, and he said this: I am a committed Anglican Christian, and at my coronation I will take an oath relating to the settlement of the Church of England. At my accession, I
have already solemnly given, as has every sovereign over the last 300 years, the oath with pledges to maintain and preserve the defender of the faith. And of course, to ensure that Scotland, the preservation of the Protestant faith. What he went on to say is this: I have always thought of Britain as a community of communities. This has led me to understand that the sovereign has an additional duty, less formally recognized, but be no less diligently discharged. It is the duty to protect the diversity of our country, including the protection, the space for faith itself and its practice through the religious, cultures, traditions, and beliefs to which our hearts and minds direct as individuals. This diversity is not just enshrined in the laws of our country, it is enjoined to my own faith. As a member of the Church of England, my Christian beliefs have love at their very heart. By my profound conviction, therefore, as well as my position as sovereign, I hold myself bound to respect those who follow other spiritual paths, as well as those who seek their lives in accordance with their secular beliefs. So, ladies and gentlemen, Britain will continue to ensure that minority faiths can practice their own way of religion and belief under the reign of King Charles III. Before I invite my Aylward Sides to come to the stage to have a prayer of benediction for King Charles III, I think it's appropriate that we all have a 1-minute silence for Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I would expect you to please all stand up. Thank you, Gareth. Please request the Aylward Sides to come. And then after the Aylward Sides have recited the benediction, we will conclude with the national anthem. You can all sit down if you wish. You can be seated.
Banami, Badam, Banami, Yasin, Bakshai, Bakshai, Skan, Merban, Yisvan, Kanaba, Teju, Shadba, Yata, Vaidyam, Naradu, Shadkiracha, Vangil, Tristam, Lingo, Shalsana, Vangil, Tristai, Shating, Jan, Odai, Intarikupya, Radvastari, Yata, Vaidyam, Naradu, Shadkiracha, Vangel Sristai Gaur Syautana Gel Mastai Shatresha Aurai Vindare Krupya Radvasai Tandarosti Diljivashi Abhayat Aur Andar Shela Yasane Noan Yasane Getiya Hafdam Shasvandam Yasaroshan Namagarasa Hindwapa Hindwapa Ame Andar Sada Satoshi Shatpa Aidun Ban Yabai Pura Nyalam Ram Aman Juman Ram Shah Ram Shisade Dayam Ram Pa Zindan Sara Sara Devarat Sarpadat Tandarosi Vidat Edun Vidat Varsaril Zaniya Sarare Vishyat Vakarmaya Vishman Baki Vapayam Vidat Zara Zana Prinba Sara Vidasteva Varokpan Mai Mubarakpan Chandasa Chandaro Chandama Vishyasa Zaida Yadashna Nyayashne Varadi Kusavarasna Shaidan Navarayama Karo Kerpera Tandarostipa, Mekipa, Upa, Edunpa, Eduntaraspa, Payastan, Vamisha, Svandan, Kamepa, Vishaunya, Shimbo, Vaisamasi, Vishasi, Vishamai, Yadashai, Vaisai, Shin.
Could I please request everybody to stand up once again for the national anthem, please?
No, just okay. So we God save our great King. God save our King. God save the King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Long live King Charles III, and long may he reign over us. Thank you very much for your time. Hooray! 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 Later on during the meal, we'll be taking a toast to his King, Majesty the King Charles. So the dinner will be shortly. Thank you very much. And hope the Queen of Memorial experience. So, ladies and gentlemen, dinner will be served shortly.